So I want you to imagine something. Imagine you're a person living in Galilee in the first century and you've never read a gospel. Gospels don't even exist. The gospels of Jesus, the four that we have in our scriptures, don't exist. Our scriptures, the Second Testament, doesn't even exist. But yet you're part of this community and y'all gather every week and you tell stories. The community tells stories of this Jesus guy. You've never met him, but you believe in him because of the stories people have told. And you're one of the few people in the community that can read and write. So you decide to write the story. You decide to do something no one else has done before and write the story of Jesus. How would you start? Today we're talking about the first chapter of the Gospel of Mark, and we're going to get into how it starts differently than any of the other Gospels in the New Testament as well. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the background of the book, where it was written, when it was written, and why that's important. So, as you can see from this map, Galilee, where I mentioned earlier, is in the north. It's north of Jerusalem a good deal. It's up around the Sea of Galilee. It makes sense. It's also just south of what we would modern day would call Syria. And this was a very cosmopolitan area, really considered the backcountry, the far part, not cosmopolitan like Jerusalem, but cosmopolitan in that there was a lot of different people there: Jews, non-Jews, Greeks, Syrians, Samaritans, Gentiles of all different types, kind of in that area. And that makes a difference in how we read this because it's also related to when it was written. So we think that the Gospel of Mark was written sometime between 66 and 70 AD. And this is important because that's also the same time that there was a massive rebellion by Jews against the occupying Roman Empire. It ended with a siege of Jerusalem, where ultimately Jerusalem was sacked and the temple was destroyed, and it hasn't been rebuilt since then. This was that time. So this area and this place and this time would have had a lot of Roman troops coming through it from north to south to get to Jerusalem and to fight the rebellion. Where does the Jesus community fall in that rebellion? Do they fall on the side of Rome? Do they fall on the side of the Jews? Do they fall somewhere in between? That's something for us to keep in mind as we continue to read Mark's gospel. But first, let's dive into the outline. So as we can see here, there's a ton of stuff that happens in the first chapter of the Gospel of Mark. We get a one-verse prologue, and then we're right into the ministry of John the Baptist. Wait, where are the shepherds? Where's Mary and Joseph? Where are the wise ones? Where's the star, the angels? How are we going to have a Christmas pageant if Mark is the only gospel that we have and it doesn't even start with the birth narrative? That's interesting. In that time, in that place, that community, this author didn't think the birth narrative was necessary in order to help people believe in Jesus. And for a while, Mark's gospel was the only gospel. That makes me think we need to dig into this prologue a bit more. First verse of Mark's gospel says, "The beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God." Now, there's interesting stuff here. Anytime you have "in the beginning" or "the beginning," Jews are automatically going to think Genesis. They're going to think the Torah. They're going to think creation. They're going to think God's involved in this story. Also, at the end of it, the Son of God. This is a title that Caesar claimed for himself. And remember, we're in this region where there's a rebellion going on against Rome. And Mark is saying, no, Caesar is not the Son of God. Jesus is the Son of God. And this is all wrapped up in the creation and the story and God's work and God's relationship. It's all right there in this one little sentence. So that's something more for us to think about. Back to the outline a bit. Okay. John the Baptist gets going. We baptize Jesus. He goes in the wilderness. He gets tempted. The ministry startup happens. He recruits some followers. He heals on the Sabbath day. Now we're getting some tension. Got to keep an eye on that. He heals Peter's mother-in-law. Again, why is he healing a mother-in-law? That's something for us to sit on and think about. Then, of course, the whole town wants to be healed. And Jesus doesn't stick around for that. He hits the road. He heals a leper on the road, and then he keeps going. So that's the first chapter of Mark. I want to go back to that question I posed at the top of this video. Why these stories? No other gospel had been written. Why start this way? What is this author trying to tell us about Jesus by starting this way, this particular way? It had never been done before. And Mark starts this way. Why is it so important? Hope you'll think about that as you read the first chapter of Mark, and I hope you'll keep reading Mark one chapter a day this Advent, and keep tuning into these videos as well. If you don't want to miss a video, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you're notified when videos from St. Patrick's come out, and we're going to keep reading. If you want to go deeper with us, tune in on Sundays to noon on Zoom. Also, some books that I'm using for this video series: Binding the Strong Man by Ched Myers. Binding the Strong Man by Ched Myers. A very interesting perspective on Mark. Also, the Mark section of the writings of the New Testament. This is a big old thick introduction to the whole New Testament from Luke Timothy Johnson. But I'm using the section on Mark's Gospel as I prepare these videos. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you soon. And remember, God loves you more than you can possibly imagine.